Forspoken developers explain magical parkour abilities. Square Enix has explained the 8 different magical parkour abilities in Forspoken that allow the player to speed, scale, and soar around the world of Athia. Detailed in a PlayStation blog post, the different skills won't all be unlocked from the beginning, but protagonist Frey will likely accrue them fairly quickly as developer Luminous Productions appears to be focusing greatly on traversal. Flow is the most basic of the parkour abilities and seemingly the first that Frey will learn. It lets the player sprint through the map at great speeds, jumping over any objects that get in the way like small rocks or walls. It does require stamina, however, but the rush ability acts as a workaround here as it allows Frey to maintain her top speeds without draining her energy. Orange flames will occasionally appear around the character, and pressing circle at this moment causes Frey to burst forward even faster without using stamina. Forspoken gameplay. Forspoken seeks to give the player the tools to explore an open world utilizing an expansive magic system and the ability to seamlessly leap around environments. Director Takashi Aramaki claims the game uses fluid movement, with Square Enix describing it as a narrative-driven adventure. Forspoken's most recent trailer offered a deeper look into what to expect from the story, but there are a few moments of gameplay worth analyzing. We see our protagonist, Frey Holland, running around an arena as a dragon swipes at her. She also traps a couple of flying monsters in a water orb, sets magically imbued explosive traps, summons a flame sword to whack foes, turns enemies to ice, fluidly leaps between the tops of buildings, conjures shifty platforms underneath her to elevate herself temporarily, and even pulls herself onto a tether to clear a gap. She can even launch magical projectiles from her palm like a machine gun. With Final Fantasy XV, Luminous Production took a dive into developing an open-world narrative-driven game. However, the team's engaging main missions were held back by a large yet empty world with repetitive side quests. This sense of scale was most hindered by the player being unable to explore the gigantic setting fluidly. The Regalia, the game's iconic vehicle, was certainly unique, but it was more of a nice way to look at the environment rather than actually leave your car and run around in it. On the other hand, Forspoken could thrive with a world similar in size to the one in Final Fantasy XV. After what we've seen of Forspoken's fluid movement that has Frey jumping off cliffs and between rocks, these environments can be justifiably huge without feeling daunting to explore. It might be important to emphasize a slight emptiness in the setting. If Forspoken is overwhelmed with cities, characters, and quests, players will have their parkour frequently interrupted by things to interact with. Climbing and sprinting at breakneck speeds makes exploration more satisfying, giving Luminous Productions the ability to keep its environments open with significant distance between landmarks to encourage the player to be on the move at all times. Chaining traversal abilities together like this is a key mechanic in Forspoken, and when mastered, can be used to zip around the map regardless of the terrain. Players can also perform a low jump with the shimmy ability, double jump with scale, and climb a cliff face with soar, for example. When jumping from the top of those cliffs, the float ability puts Frey in a water bubble that acts as a glider, and she also has what's essentially a grapple ability, called zip, that can be used for traversal or as a dodging mechanic in combat. Finally, for getting across bodies of water, Frey can essentially turn into Frozone from The Incredibles and create an icy surfboard to maintain her speed even across lakes and rivers. Forspoken gameplay details. What we've seen so far of Forspoken showcases how Frey will be a particularly athletic hero. The main character has a skill known as magic parkour, which allows her to run fast, leap great distances, and use the environment to swing across gaps and climb vertical inclines. The latest look at the upcoming adventure offered insight into how magic is at the center of everything in Forspoken, from combat to exploration. Frey is outfitted with a variety of magical spells and combat styles that you can use and adapt depending on your preferred style of play. From long-distance powers to close-range spells, there's all manner of magical attacks to experiment with. With RPG elements such as crafting and upgrades, you can improve a variety of Frey's skills. Gear can also be equipped such as necklaces and capes to improve stats. In order to bring together realism with fantasy, Frey can use shards to paint patterns on her nails to make spellcasting more powerful. In our hands-on preview with Forspoken, we got the chance to try out some of the layered spells in Frey's arsenal. Forspoken was first announced as Project Athia in 2020 but rebranded a year later, announcing boldly that it aimed to use its open world and Frey's magical abilities to create the highest quality visuals ever. It was delayed in March this year and will now be released for PlayStation 5 and PC on January 24, 2023.